Hello everybody, Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is the Schaftlein Report. It's Monday's edition, and we're broadcasting from cool and cloudy Irvine, California today. Happy to have you with us, and hope everyone had a nice, relaxing holiday weekend. I know we certainly did. Had plenty of turkey and stuffing and all those goodies, and a nice family weekend. So, welcome back. We're going to get into the swing of things. A lot to cover today, surprisingly, and we're going to get to all of it. So, first and foremost, we had a couple mass shootings last week. The media's tried to portray it, hype it up. Following those mass shootings, the president went out and said he's going to do everything he can to ban semi-automatic weapons. Again, going after the gun and not the person who committed the crime. Well, a couple Democratic senators basically came out and said, no, Mr. President, we don't have the votes for that. So a lot more priorities that the House and Senate have to get done, like a spending bill to keep the government funded, and a few other things too. So we'll have a situation here where the president wants to push one item, and Ron Klain, as chief of staff, and the other advisors are going to come out and they're going to say, Mr. President, we really don't have the votes. You can go out and talk about it. The election's over. But we really have more important things we have to do. But, again, we saw last week where, a couple high-profile cases garnered media attention. But sadly enough, it was a typical weekend in Chicago where 28 were shot and 5 were fatal. Again, folks, when the people try to blame the guns, it's not the guns. It's the people pulling the trigger on the guns. And fortunately, some people are starting to recognize that, we have a mental health issue in this country, and we need to deal with it as such. But like a lot of people have already said, we have laws on the books. Passing another law is not going to do a damn thing to stop these shootings. If we would enforce the laws on the books and put these criminals in jail, or the mentally ill, what are you going to say to a guy after he kills 5 people and he says, oh, now I'm mentally ill? I mean, come on. And then the guy at the Walmart shooting ended up killing himself. So no, it's as they like to say, rinse, wash, repeat. Sure as the sun comes up in the morning in most places, Democrats will come out and they'll politicize these shootings, and they try to do it again. But look, at this point in the game, even Democratic senators are saying, Mr. President, come on, we have other things that we have to deal with. Now, again, I don't blame Biden for speaking out. I mean, he's the president, he can say that. He's got the bully pulpit. But at the end of the day, folks, especially in a lame duck session of Congress with a lot of bills, spending bills, budget bills that have to get dealt with, this isn't going to make the cut. So don't sweat it. Now, look, we have elections coming up here, okay? Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker are still at it. Believe it or not, folks, there is one more election to go. It's December 6th. Now, Warnock has outraised Walker 3-1 in that race. There's only been very limited polling come out. You want to know why? Some of the pollsters got burned last time, and they're really not coming out and making any predictions. But there's 1 or 2 polls out there showing Warnock with a slight lead. How small a lead? We don't know, but voting has started. A judge in Georgia overruled the fact that state law said you couldn't vote 2 days after a holiday, when in fact the Georgia Supreme Court ruled you could. So the question is, who's going to turn out? Well, we don't have the answer to that question yet. But whoever does turn out, whether it's the Democrats supporting Warnock, the Republicans supporting Walker, which way did the independents break? They broke a little bit towards Warnock last time. That's going to dictate the outcome of this race. Now, a case that got a little bit of attention in Georgia, not too much nationwide, but in DeKalb County, that's right outside Atlanta, group of 4 kids tried to break it. They were in their teens and 20s, tried to break into a guy's home. The Georgia homeowner Good for him. He was able to kill 1 and wound 3 as the criminals tried to rob him. And no charges were filed against the homeowner, which is also good. It's too bad he couldn't go 4 for 4, but 1 for 4 will take it. You know, the other 3, 1 got away, 2 are in the hospital. They'll get the other one. But here's a good example. Here, crime in a local area. We've been talking about it. Will that have an effect on the race? I don't know. But I do expect some polling to come out of Georgia in the next few days. And you're already seeing media outlets, particularly ones on the left, blaming Trump. They're saying, well, if Walker loses, it's Trump's fault. There's some truth to it if that happens. But again, this is going to be one of those pieces where the turnout's not going to be high because we already had the midterm election. But which base comes out for the other? I don't necessarily think the people that voted for the independent in the last one, the libertarian candidate, he got like 2.5% of the vote. That's what really cost Raphael Warnock that seat. Because had Warnock got 50%, we wouldn't be having this. Same goes for Walker, but Walker was behind by almost 40,000 votes. So, big election coming up. Control of the Senate is at hand. And when I say control, the Democrats are going to remain controlled. But it's different having a 50-50 Senate versus 51-49. And we're going to get into that a little bit on tomorrow's show when we talk about the 2024 8 Senate seats that Democrats are going to have to defend that Republicans are licking their chops over. But boy, the way the Republicans performed in the Senate this past race, they're going to have to get their message together. But speaking of 2024, have you noticed out there that the Trump 2024, Republicans are yawning about this? It's generated very little excitement. We predicted this. Those who follow us, we told you this would happen. And there are plenty of potential challengers lining up to challenge the former president when the primaries come up. We've talked about them. No surprise whatsoever, Nikki Haley's going to throw her hat in. Mike Pence, we expect. Mike Pompeo, possibly. Asa Hutchinson, former governor of Arkansas, has indicated he may run. Larry Hogan, former governor of Maryland. And of course, we haven't talked about Ron DeSantis yet. Everybody else is. But Governor DeSantis, he's not going to do anything right away. He can take his time, and we'll see how that plays itself out. But he's in no rush. One little tidbit, it is interesting. Brian Kemp, Georgia governor, just beat Stacey Abrams. He's filed papers, federal election papers, to form a political action committee. Interesting. Will Kemp throw his name in there? One person who said he's not going to run, and we'll see about this. I have my doubts. But California Governor Gavin Newsom says he's ruled out a 2024 run. Well, all the Democrats are basically saying this. Effectively what they're doing is saying we'll cede control in 2024 to Biden if he wants to run. Well, one thing about the Democrats, all right, they lost the House, and so what happened? Pelosi decides to step out of leadership. Steny Hoyer, he's not in leadership anymore, won't be. Jim Clyburn said he wants to stay in leadership in the number 4 position to, quote, represent the South, whatever that means. But give the Democrats credit. You know, they're not going to have this ugly primary fight, it doesn't look like, right now. That can change. Now, Biden has indicated he's going to let the country know after the first of the year if he's going to run in 2024. He's 80 years old, folks, right now. Do the Democrats really want to put an 82-year-old man out there to run for office against a potentially younger man or woman from the Republican side? I don't know about that. And especially if, as a lot of economists, and we're going to talk about this later in the show, saying the country could be headed for a 2023 recession. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But again, Newsom for right now says he's not going to run. Now, Newsom, believe it or not, folks, for those of you who don't follow California politics, Newsom was elected governor 4 years ago. He survived. He easily defeated a recall election, and he just won handily again. So he is a political force on the Democratic side. But so is Kamala Harris, and there could be some others. But right now, they're all falling in line behind Biden. So it's Biden's call if he's going to run or not. Now, shifting over to the House, Republicans are going to end up with a 222 to 213 advantage. I know there's two races unofficially not called yet, but Republicans are leading in both of them, about 99% of the vote in. When in one case, 100% of the vote in Colorado, Lauren Boebert's district, they just have to do the mandatory recount. She's going to win. And one California district where the Republicans is going to win that one too. So 222, 213, slightly better than anticipated. On election night, NBC News had it 219, 216. Others had it 220, 215. Anyhow, 222, 213 is going to be the number. McCarthy is still projected to be Speaker despite far right-wing grumblings. And there currently are 5 members of the Republican Party who say they will not vote for McCarthy. That would be one of the dumbest damn things I've seen in politics in decades. Here you have a guy that led the party to win 14 seats in the last cycle, pick up another 10, 11 seats now, and you got a group of people, hopefully they're just bargaining for various positions. Kevin McCarthy not only has earned the right to be Speaker, he should be the Speaker. He raised a lot of dough for a lot of people, and he led the party to wins, albeit when Biden was elected, they picked up 14 seats, and now in the midterm, they're still going to end up like plus 10. Not the number a lot of people thought, but bear in mind, when you're plus 14, plus 10, and a lot of these districts, are carved up, there's gerrymandering, it's not a debacle. Yeah, a lot of people grumbled about it, but if you want to grumble about what happened in the Senate, not the House. Heck, the races that we lost in the House were like 51-49, 50.5, 49.5, very close. Some of those Senate races weren't. So Kevin McCarthy deserves to be Speaker. We fully support him. And I hope a handful of far right-wing Republicans do not hold it up. Even some very conservative Republicans, Marjorie Taylor Greene supports McCarthy. A bunch of the Freedom Caucus members support McCarthy. Jim Jordan supports him. So hopefully this is just a push to get a few things changed. We do not want to see a messy fight for the speakership post beyond Kevin McCarthy. Again, if we do, it's just going to illustrate the Democrat talking points that Republicans can't trust them in government. We don't agree with that, obviously. But we do want McCarthy to be elected Speaker, and we hope it's unanimous within the party. That vote's going to happen on January 3rd. Now, post-election, Joe Biden's approval hasn't changed a whole lot. 42% approve, 56% do not. So again, I'm not going to rehash the election. We've gone over it enough. But again, Democrats did reasonably well despite the president's low approval rating. And that nothing much has changed. He's still around 42% approve, 56% don't. Now, news came out, just broke yesterday and today, that the president is going to allow Chevron to drill oil off the Venezuelan coast and bring it to America. And my first reaction was, what is going on here? Mr. President, what about drilling in the United States? We have so many opportunities here that it's prohibited. And I'll answer that question, that rhetorical question for you folks. If he allows drilling off the coast of Venezuela, and there's a lot of oil there, that's going to bring jobs to Venezuelans, but also going to bring oil to the U.S. It just doesn't look bad politically for him because it's being done elsewhere. But what about drilling here? The Trump administration, they did everything they could to make the U.S. independent, and they achieved that goal. So why do we have to drill off Venezuela to bring that oil to the U.S. when we could do it here? Real simple answer, folks. It's the greenies in the Democratic Party. To them, oil is like kryptonite, for you Superman fans. But that's what's happening. Now, oil prices, if you've noticed, folks, oil has given up all of its 2022 gains. West Texas Intermediate crude is under $80 a barrel right now. So oil prices have been coming down. Now, why is that? Is it because the economy is slowing? Maybe. Is it because of lack of demand in China because of COVID lockdowns? Maybe. But one thing hasn't gone down, folks, and that's diesel prices. Diesel prices are up 50% this year on tight supplies. Folks, this is not good for the United States economy. This affects ships, trucks, trains, trailers, tractors. This leads to higher inflation and rising prices because it increases the transportation costs to get goods everywhere across the country. And I'll tell you who's to blame for this? Squarely the Democrats are. And their ridiculous green energy oil policies that are affecting diesel prices. Supply and demand, yes, of course. But right in the middle of that are Democrats to blame. Folks, when it costs you to transport more, the cost goes up, it's going to get passed through. That's why these food prices are so high. Now, speaking of the greens, I got a good chuckle when I saw this story. This is, this is the global warming effect we're dealing with. Do you know right now, folks, we have a 56-year high in the amount of snow that's covering the ground in North America? And get a load of this, the forecast is for a cold winter. So here in North America, you're going to have a heating oil shortage in the deep blue, solid Northeast. There's going to be a heating oil shortage. And it's going to be cold in the Northeast. I want to see all those global warming people out there in the Northeast. I want to see them protesting while it's cold outside and people are really chilly and some people can't afford it because the prices are all out of whack because of Biden's energy policies. And all these deep blue states and all these liberals that voted for Democrats and all these global warming fanatics, when it's freezing in the Northeast, I'm just going to have a chuckle. 56%, 56 years, more snow covering North America. You got to have a little bit of chuckle with it, folks. Now, as we've mentioned to you, and we're going to talk a little bit more about economics here, we warned you about this FTX Ponzi scheme. We talked about how bad it was. This goes back a long way. Well, it claimed another victim today. BlockFi, another crypto firm, filed for bankruptcy, and the fallout continues from the FTX Ponzi scheme. Folks, there are many more dominoes left to fall. This is only getting started. The house of cards is coming down. And it's not, I don't just blame the FTX people. A lot of people on Wall Street and Main Street fell for these schemes. They created tokens, coins out of nowhere that had no backing. And then they pumped up the value of these coins, borrowed money against it, and now the whole house is coming down. Folks, customers' accounts, they pillaged the customers' money, took it out of their accounts and used it for private goodies for Sam Bankman-Fried and all his cronies. No system of internal controls whatsoever. It's a complete disaster. And both political parties want to get to the bottom of this. So we'll keep you informed as that goes along. Bear in mind, the guy who oversaw the Enron bankruptcy, that's who's overseeing the FTX scandal. And according to him, it's worse. Now, Federal Reserve Governor Williams today said that further tightening is needed to cool inflation. And he's right. A lot of people on Wall Street were celebrating, we're at the end of it. They're going to start cutting. Fed's not going to be cutting interest rates, folks. They'll continue raising them to a level that they're comfortable with. And then they're going to keep them there for a while. The people on Wall Street, the cheerleaders and the pom-pom boys who are thinking, as soon as it gets here, then they're going to start cutting because the country's going into recession. No, that's not how it's going to work. You literally could see the country in recession and still have high inflation. That is a disaster. But recession fears are gripping Wall Street today as these protests in China are causing stocks to fall today. Now, they've had a nice run up. But between what's happening in China, I don't know if you've caught the news or not, but again, you're seeing protests break out all over China. And these crazy COVID lockdown policies they have. And people have had enough. I mean, they're already living under a communist dictatorship, the largest surveillance system in the world. And kid yourself not, there are millions of people protesting. Well, if you were hungry and you had your doors forcibly locked and you couldn't work and you had a family to support and you had the communist dictatorship cramming down policies from above and it was affecting you and your family and millions of others, you'd be ticked off too. And a lot of people are risking life and limb going out on these protests. But I think they're sensing we've had enough. So Wall Street is paying attention to this because a lot of the growth that some of these, particularly the technology companies have, it comes out of China. So when you have a situation where you coupled with potential cutoff of the Chinese growth spigot, the Federal Reserve continuing to say that we're going to have to raise interest rates, you're going to see some slowdowns. And the layoffs that are starting to happen in the technology industry, they're just starting. The labor market's still relatively tight. We're going to get the numbers first Friday of December about the unemployment reports and the employment reports. So, we'll cover that when it happens. But right now, there's some issues out there with the economy. And thank God a judge put a halt to this insane illegal student loan fiasco. Hell, that had been another $400 billion of spending on top, which would have made the Fed's job even tougher. But we're going to cover all that for you. Now, for those of you who are football fans, my goodness, let's talk about what happened over the weekend. Georgia routed Georgia Tech. They're still number one in the college football poll. Michigan pulled off an impressive win over Ohio State. That running game, that one running back, 2 runs over 75 yards. They really crushed the Buckeyes in the second half. TCU routed Iowa State to move up to number 3. That wasn't even a competitive game. And then USC had an impressive performance against Notre Dame at the Coliseum on Saturday night, likely wrapping up a potential Heisman Trophy winner for their star quarterback, Caleb Williams. Now, should TCU or USC stumble, the most likely people to follow, Ohio State, 1 loss. I don't know. How do you put Ohio State in the top 4, even if one of the top 4 lost after they got blown out at home? And then number 6 is Alabama. Well, they got 2 losses. So, barring USC or TCU getting blown out, USC plays Utah in the Pac-12 title game. TCU is in the title game. I mean, barring major blowouts, I mean, those top 4 look pretty solid there. And it's always a crazy weekend in the National Football League. So, I mean, as we head into the holidays, folks, you're going to see college bowl games being announced. The playoffs will get set after this weekend. And then, of course, we have the NFL season going on. So, for all the issues and all the difficult things we face, there's always college and professional football to lift the spirits. So, keep an eye on what's going on in China. This is really important stuff. And not to mention, internationally, the advance the Ukrainians are making, taking back their own town. Man, you see these stories about these Russian conscripts and draftees, how the Russian military is not even giving them proper warmth and clothing. You actually feel sorry for these guys. I saw pictures over the weekend of these Russian soldiers, in a trench, freezing to death. Saw a picture of a drone dropping a bomb. The people didn't even move. They were so cold. The Russians literally are throwing out their troops to die in this unnecessary conflict. And it's just horrific what Putin is doing. So between the disastrous military campaign the Russians are dealing with and the unrest in China, there's some crazy stuff going on, folks. Pay attention to what's happening out there. I haven't heard the president mention anything about what's going on in China yet. He can talk about gun control, but no comments about China. Maybe that'll change. But anyhow, we'll be back tomorrow on Tuesday. We're going to talk a little bit about all those vulnerable seats that the Democrats have in 2024. We'll give you an update on if anything's changed related to McCarthy, updates on China, Russia, Ukraine, and we'll cut through all the propaganda that gets thrown at you every day. Elon Musk is doing a lot of good stuff on cleaning up Twitter. We wish him well, and we're going to stay on top of it for you. So, thanks for viewing and listening today on a Monday. Be back on Tuesday. We'll cover it all for you. We'll see you tomorrow.